evening, everybody. This is the council meeting for Monday, December 4th. Thank you, Councillor Dawson, for providing the territorial acknowledgement earlier this evening. We have the agenda before us. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the kinks, the Community Planning Committee recommendation, correspondence from Richard Jensen, correspondence regarding the Matheson Museum Society from Ayla Zalek and Stella French, as well as a final letter from Wendy regarding the subdivision application on Leefield. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. You're still with us, Councillor Shukin?
I am. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, great. We don't have any presentations this evening, so with that, I'll open this up for public participation. You have 4 minutes per person. If you could identify yourself and state the road that you're on. Thank you.
Patty Whitehouse, Rocket Point Road, and just to get my not very serious point out of the way before more serious matters come before council. With respect to libraries, I'm very much in favor of supporting the Greater Victoria Public Library. Big Barn Books, of course, is not actually a library, it's a used bookstore, but the prices are so low that it might as well be a library. But don't forget Machoson's network of little local libraries. I use mine regularly, and the wonderful thing about it is that you never know what you're going to find.
Thank you.
Bonnie Hoover, Neil Rose. Good evening, Mayor Little, Councillors Donaldson, Epp, Gray, and Shukin. Congratulations on a challenging, busy, active, and very productive first year of your term in office. It is amazing what has been accomplished. I'm pleased with your progress, your transparency, and your professionalism, and hope the momentum continues. It has been a difficult year with a new council and a new staff members that have had to face challenges in many areas, including numerous outside agencies, new laws, new initiatives from the provincial and federal governments, all the while coping with everyday municipal governance and related fiscal components. Finally, I wish each and every one of you a Merry Christmas and all the best for 2024. Happy New Year. Thank you.
Barbara Sawatsky, 4713 Kabir Road. I attended the meeting about the old school, which was supposed to be a workshop, but I came away quite confused. And I'm wondering who made the decision to hire Hildebrand Consulting? Nobody?
That was a decision, I brought it actually to staff to get a recommendation. It was a staff decision.
Okay, and given that they live in Mill Bay, why were they chosen over others who applied when the job was advertised, or was it advertised?
It wasn't advertised. It's not a job, it's just a short-term contract for facilitating a meeting.
And so why were they chosen?
Because of their expertise in the arts and cultural community, in setting up commissions, setting up boards, and helping with similar entities thrive.
Should we not have somebody perhaps chosen who would look at the broader picture outside of arts and culture? Because the school isn't just set aside for arts and culture. And considering the 2023 budget cutbacks on top of our large property tax increase, how much are they getting paid?
I don't know that. Not very much, but not very much.
So I guess my confusion still reigns, because it seems that we've had an awful lot of expenses this year, a lot of money going out. So I'm confused as to why they were even approached instead of the general population of Machosen.
was just a decision that was made based on their expertise.
And you made that decision?
Well, staff made the decision, yes,
And who brought it to staff?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Chris Moore, 4545 William Head Road. I would like to speak on a couple of small administrative matters, and then if I may come back, I would like to again speak on an item that is far more strategic in nature, if that's agreeable. I feel now particularly awkward about my first comment, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. It relates to our acting CAO, Sulin, and it's based on the feedback from a number of parties, including those in particular from our note takers at council and committee meetings. First off, Sulin, you should know that everybody is or was pleased to see you back at the table, and not having to jump up to the microphone in order to say what you would like to say. Obviously, I don't know, maybe that was just an experiment. Anyway, however, and this I think is a good point for you, you tend to be soft-spoken, and as a result, it's often difficult to hear you. And I was thinking at the table, especially if you have your back to the public and you're not speaking directly into the microphone. Perhaps something can be done to correct this, because folks are really interested in what you have to say. And may also be a big part of that may be that some of us are have aging hearing issues, but I'll just leave that there. Okay, next quick bit. We, the APRM, we're often asked what mayor and council are doing with respect to the pressure that has been thrust upon us and other municipalities with respect, and I quote, affordable housing, unquote. I've often wondered myself, to be honest. A few days ago, a copy of the correspondence that was sent to the Minister of Housing, this is some months ago, actually crossed my desk. I just want to say I would like to commend you all for that initiative, and particularly the content of that letter. It was well crafted, respectful, and particularly strong in making Matheson's case. So I'd like to suggest that it should have a broader audience for your residents, so that they know what you're doing and the stand that you have taken. Maybe it's on the website, but I don't think people spend hours looking through your website. But you might also consider asking the Muse to do a reprint of that. It would be good news to many, many people. You should take some bows here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Just before that happens, I guess on the notion that Ms. Moore has raised, I'll call a point of order.
What's your point?
My point is that I think council needs to follow our bylaws, and as I described at a recent meeting, we follow the Robert's Rules of Order 3.7 and 47.53 that our secretary and parliamentarian named our CO should be sitting at the table. It seems to me that we need to follow our bylaws if we want residents to follow our bylaws.
Okay. Ms. Tarnowski, would you like to join us at the table?
I would love to.
Thank you.
Put her at the end there so she can use your mic.
According to Robert's rules, she needs a seat to the right of the presiding chair. The parliamentarian shall be assigned a seat next to the chair so as to be convenient for consultation in a low voice.
get her a chair? Okay, does anybody else wish to speak at public participation?
Brent Donaldson, Chalister Court. I'm speaking this evening on reports for information from the Colquitt's Engineering. I'm a member with the Bilston Watershed Habitat Society. One of the concerns I have about this report is it focuses on the housing component. And the Center Mountain project is over 300 acres, and we're missing pieces here. And the problem with the whole project up there is we're splitting it into chunks. We're splitting it into pieces like in a pie. The problem is collectively it's 300 acres, and we're just focusing on the housing. It strikes me that the whole project should be dealt with collectively with one report. Ultimately, all that water will end up in Bilston Creek. Some in Machosen, even the industrial lands over the back will come through the back of Dewdney Flats, but ultimately, it's all coming down Bilston Creek. So I have concerns that we're splitting it up, not we, but certainly Langford is, in a piecemeal fashion. I think it's really important that we take a step back and look at that project. The industrial site itself is over 100 acres. Likely it's going to be asphalt and rooftop. So let's just look at the whole thing as being an asphalt parking lot over there. So we're going to get tons of runoff, and these engineers that are doing these reports, they'll be retired by the time we get the problems. In half of Machosen, the waterways is going to be just a huge drainage ditch. So I really emphasize the fact that we should be looking at this collectively as one project rather than splitting it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Nicole Shukin, Levon Road resident. I just want to also congratulate Mayor Little especially and all of council for all of the firsts in this first year of your mayoralship and your year as a new council. The News published a year in review, and just the number of firsts is mind-boggling under your watch, Mayor Little. And I also want to echo the APRM's appreciation of the letter that was sent to the province a couple of months back. And as I recall, almost all of council voted to send that, but I think Councillor Gray voted against sending that letter. I also want to speak to the Colquitt's review that's on the agenda tonight with the inline comments. And I'm curious why the Colquitt's review is in fact before council, because as I recall, last meeting, the last planning committee meeting, or maybe it was the last council meeting, council instructed staff to come back with clarification on Al Hurley's, the consultant engineer's memo or update on the stormwater plan. And they asked that because the memo was so troubling. The wording said that Machosen would give approval of the stormwater plan after completion of the works. It didn't just say that once, the wording was that way at least twice. And so I wonder if council is getting a response to the instruction that they made with that motion. And I also find the Colquitt's review itself just so odd because it is a letter to Langford, and our consultant engineer is just CC'd. And I believe that the budget line of $20,000 that was set aside last November was to serve Machosen's interest in ensuring that that stormwater plan, that the Machosen downstream effects or impacts of that stormwater plan would be assessed. And it looks like what happened instead is Colquitt's is working for Langford. It's a Langford-centric report. It references Langford's stormwater bylaw. There's no reference to Machosen's rainwater bylaw. So I don't know how a whole year has managed to pass after $20,000 was set aside for a hydrologist or qualified professional to look at Machosen's interests in this. But time has been wasted, and this is one of the most important issues facing Machosen in decades, given that we are going to be downstream from that massive mega residential and industrial development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Avril Yoakum, Windfall Road. A very short note. After hearing the visioning for the school site, I would suggest you put the facilitator on hold, because right now there's not a whole lot of room for servicing the public. We've got Instinct and we've got MACA, and I think your first step is to reach out to the people, the residents, find out what they want, how that can accommodate. Then maybe it's time for a facilitator. Just a suggestion.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak this evening?
Kim Hill, I live at 1070 Brookview Drive, banks of Bilston Creek. Speaking to the, I think it's page 91 on your agenda, Culpets Engineering report. I'd like to reiterate something that Mr. Donaldson said about the way this is being dealt with in general in a piecemeal fashion. But more specifically, is the way it's being fragmented to a point where it's virtually useless. Back in the spring, we dedicated $20,000 to have a hydrologist look after our interests, the chosen's interests, for drainage that was coming from Langford. Now we see that Langford is actually being, they're the addressee on this report. That is somewhat alarming, to say the least, to start off with. Seems to be a conflict of interest there. This report does not give any background information. It refers to documents that are not attached to this. It is not helpful in the least. I'm going to tell you, I was quite angered about receiving this, because we've been working for the better part of a year trying to make sure that this massive development up on Center Mountain, we're talking 350 new houses, a huge industrial park. It is hundreds and hundreds of acres that are going to be impervious surfaces. Most of that drainage is coming back down into Matheson Creek. A lot of it's coming down to Bilston. It all ends up in Matheson. It has to be managed properly, and the deal that Matheson made with Langford, they get all of the development, we get to manage the runoff, the drainage, the retention ponds or detention ponds, whatever they are, in Matheson. It's a crazy arrangement to start with, but we were given a guarantee that before they did any intensive works on that project, before they started putting pipes in the ground and clearing off the wetlands, so forth, that we would get the drainage plan. We didn't. They went ahead and did that. The wetlands have been destroyed. The stream courses have been obliterated. They're up there doing that to this day. We have no plans for what's happening downstream to manage that water. I am outraged. I'm pretty much enough is enough stage. I think it is way past time for we get some strong leadership on this. We need to assert ourselves. Langford is running ramshod. They are imposing their lousy, old-fashioned bylaws. They're using a 1 in 10 criteria for stormwater runoff. Our rainwater bylaw dictates 1 in 200. We should be demanding that the water that comes into our area is governed by our bylaws. They are the rules. it has been going on for the better part of a year. There has been no complaint from Matheson, so guess what? They just go on and continue the behavior. Unless this council wants to be responsible for what the outcome is going to be of this, if you just sit back and let it keep going, you're going to be responsible for the unmitigated continued flooding downstream, the unmitigated and unregulated runoff of polluted water from that place. Our natural assets are at stake here. That is what is important to Matheson. Maybe not Langford. It apparently doesn't seem so much. But I am a proud Mathesonite, and I know this council. I know you folks were elected on, well, I know where your hearts are on this. I need you to follow with I need you to walk the walk instead of just doing top to top, because this is not working. Some of your community members have had enough as well. I'm right at the brink. Some of them have already decided to just give up on you because they think it's a done deal. And I think that you've got I said at the last meeting, a real problem with the staff to connect on this. And yeah, I also wonder what happened to the request from Councillor Shukin at the last meeting about the clarification on the memo. I'd also like to know how much this report has cost Matheson, the one that we paid for from Colquitt's Engineering. I'd like to know what the numbers are as a taxpayer. I would like to know what we paid for this, because it's a concern as someone who is, you know, I don't mind paying extra if I get service. If it means having some more staff on hand to take care of things properly, I'll pony up for part of the cost. I am not satisfied with the level of service at this time, and plain speaking, I'm not pulling any more punches because I don't want to come back here complaining again about this. I want some action. I hope to see it. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak at public participation?
Okay, Chris Moore again, William Head Road, and as president of the APRM, I'd like to now speak to Mayor and Council to an important dimension of the district's ongoing evaluation of our buffer lands. I know that many of you are aware that the ultimate fate of our buffer lands is a long-standing item of interest to both the current and previous executive of the APRM. I'd like to emphasize that our overarching goal in addressing you this evening is to contribute, or to try to contribute, to collaborative solutions for this important district asset. Now, arising from APRM's role in our community, which is some 30 years standing, and from our specific interest in the buffer land, I'm pleased to let you know that we have recently received a completely unsolicited donation from an anonymous party, and they would like to stay that way, that could help to fund an independent professional appraisal of the buffer land. I believe that donations of this nature are properly referred to as restricted donations. That is, they have a very specific target, and the money can only be spent in that direction. Now, I'd like to share the reasons why the APRM would like to have a professional appraisal secured for the district. First off, having an appraisal in hand is an absolutely basic and important condition, precedent or precondition for potential exploration by the district of future strategic partnerships for this land. One reason that the district may want to have this done is to support the option of pursuing future partnerships to help defray the otherwise ongoing costs of monitoring, maintaining, and or enhancing this important piece of public land. Obtaining such an appraisal will create both a negotiating leverage and an option value for the district in the realm of potential partnerships, of which right now there appear to be quite a number. I believe Bev Bacon has flagged for you some recent federal funding measures. I know that the APRM did with formal letter to Mayor and Council a year ago, November, so they are out there and they are increasing. Well, lastly, even if you were to keep an appraisal unused and just put it in your hip pocket for a while, its accuracy would remain for a reasonable time span, and the updates based on inflation rates would be very simple. Now, based on some preliminary findings, exploration that have been done to date, the APRM anticipates the cost of a professional appraisal by the good folks would likely be in the order of $3,000 to $4,000. We would have the ability, the APRM, to cover a good portion of the cost if the district were to pursue obtaining that appraisal. I'm going to leave it at that for now. I thank you for the opportunity to bring this item of really strategic importance to your attention, and I hope and believe that we have all learned over time that success most often comes by working together with a common goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others for public participation this evening? If not, Council, if you can turn your pages to page 5 of the agenda. This is, we're moving to the adoption of minutes. This is the council meeting of November 20th. Could I have a motion for adoption? Move received. Moved by Council Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. Comments?
That's a move for adoption rather than receive, I think.
I understood that.
Adoption, yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Anybody else? No? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So we have the special council meeting of November 20th. Move adoption.
Adoption.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have the special council meeting of November 26th.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we've got some minutes to receive. The Finance Committee, Councillor Donaldson.
Move to receive the Finance Committee meeting minutes for November 23rd, 2023.
November 20th, I believe.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. November 20th. Move receipt by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have the Special Finance Committee meeting of November 23rd. Councillor Donaldson.
Move to receive the budget meeting minutes for November 23rd, 2023.
Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I just had a question about that one. If we might get staff to look up under number 2, there's a reference here, the fire department Halloween event, not having, or question raised about that, and if we could learn more about that at the budget meeting this week, that would be helpful. Thank you.
So just to be clear, you want,
Just what's the issue about the fire department Halloween event that was raised by resident Tamara Ballard?
okay, I'll bring that to the attention of staff, thank you. Okay, call the question, all in favor, opposed, carried. And the Community Planning Committee meeting, Councillor Shukin.
Just move the receipt of the Community Planning Committee meeting minutes of November 27th, 2023. So moved.
Move receipt by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray.
Just
Comments?
just one point. During that meeting, Councillor Shukin asked me to remind him of when we had decided to have a council discussion on housing issues. And so I looked it up. It was June 19, 2023. Council agreed by consensus to bring the issue around housing to an upcoming community planning committee meeting. For the record.
Anything else?
Oh, and Mayor Little, I just will thank Councillor Gray for noting that. I do recall it now, or when he reminded me of it, so thank you.
Great, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And Councillor Gray, for the November 27th minutes.
Chair, I move receipt of the Environment and Natural Areas Committee meeting of November 27, 2023.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And Councillor Epp, this is the Public Works and Protective Service Committee meeting of November 27th.
Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Gray. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to my mayor's report. First of all, to update the community, Mr. Bob Payette has been selected as the new Chief Administrative Officer for the District of Matheson. The selection was made by Matheson's council following a comprehensive recruitment and interview process. I'm delighted to welcome Bob to this new role. Bob brings a tremendous range of experience to this role, having been a CAO for over 10 years in several communities. He has a strong record in navigating issues facing small communities and of working with council staff and residents and other stakeholders to address the challenges. His commitment to supporting local organization is inspiring and will be highly valued in this volunteer-oriented community like Matheson. Bob is currently the CAO for the District of Weir and has served a range of roles in local government in BC and Alberta. He has experience with Parks and Recreation, Community Development, and Protective Services, and served 10 years in the military early in his career. Bob and his spouse will be relocating to the Greater Victoria area. The role of the interim CAO has been held by Sulin Tarnowski since June of 2022. Sulin joined the District of Matheson as the Chief Financial Officer in 2022. I want to thank Sulin for supporting Matheson for the role of interim CAO. She continues to be a valued member of the district's leadership team. Bob Payette is slated to begin working in Matheson on January 8th. Moving on to some of the other items that I have in the mayor's update. On November 21st, I was invited to an elders lunch at William Head Institution. This lunch was held by the Indigenous Culture Committee, formerly the Native Brotherhood of William Head Institution. The lunch was held at the Shiana Oyen, the Salmon House at William Head. It was a great chance to meet elders from Indigenous communities from North Cowichan to Victoria. It was a great opportunity to share stories and encourage, recognize, and support the Indigenous inmates at the minimum security prison. This was followed by a Community Action Committee meeting, which I attend on a monthly basis to understand the current struggles and successes at the prison. Regarding the CRD, the Code of Conduct is now being discussed at the CRD Governance Committee. Actually, they'll be on December 6th on Wednesday. It's been recommended that the Code of Conduct be a bylaw, and representatives from the CRD will be allowed to make complaints. So we'll follow that to see how that progresses at the Governance Committee. I'm the new Vice Chair of the CRD Board. I've been invited to attend informal government-to-government meetings with First Nations, including Peninsula Area First Nations, which has been really encouraging and really interesting. On November 10th, Chair Colin Plant, CEO Ted Robbins, Manager of the First Relations, Caitlin Vernon, Head of Corporate Service Kristen Morley, and I attended a government-to-government meeting with the Pakwachin First Nation in North Saanich. This was an incredibly productive meeting, and we talked about water, housing, and the importance of good communications and relations between the First Nations and the CRD. Regarding the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice, I'm the chair of this committee. At this month's meeting, we heard from Ms. Cindy Andrews, a director of the Community Partnerships for the Village Initiative. The purpose of the Village Initiative is to engage community and system leaders working in the Sooke West Shore region in a collaborative structure that can identify and address key community issues facing children, youth, and adults through a coordinated response. So the objectives of the Village Initiatives align quite closely with the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee. The Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee is a delegated CRD commission, and the committee continues to meet at the CRD on a monthly basis to advocate for children and families who come in contact with the court system or are going on the pathway to come in contact with the court system. We also provide a conduit for information from resource agencies on the streets to council members, and we advocate for the resource agencies who work with vulnerable populations of children and youth. And that concludes my mayor's update.
Mayor Little, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Just with regards to the Community Action Committee out at William Head Institution, I know we've been at this table a number of times talking about the traffic at Weir's Beach, and I wondered if you've had an opportunity to talk further about that with the people at the prison.
You mean the traffic on the road?
Yes, we
Yes.
had complaints from residents about the speed, people not observing the speed limits and that sort of thing, and I think you were going to have a word with them. Any progress?
We talked about it at 2 meetings, actually. The warden has talked to staff about that, and hopefully people in that area will be seeing a reduction in the speeding. Also, we did point out, or I did point out the last time, that the RCMP would also be monitoring that, so that hopefully will be a factor.
Work in progress, thank you.
Councillor Eck.
Yeah, I also had a question about William Head, and we had spoken previously about one particular man who was an extremely violent child rapist and a murderer who is currently at William Head, and you mentioned you were going to speak to them about having that type of prisoner at a minimum security facility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we did talk about this individual. We can't, at an open meeting like this, talk about specifics of a case. However, I have invited the assistant warden or the warden to attend a January meeting, and perhaps you can ask that question in generality at that time. Okay? Okay. So moving along to business arising, we have the Finance Committee recommendations. Councillor Donaldson on page 41.
That council approved the West Shore Parks and Recreation Society 2024 budget and requisition as presented.
It's moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Eck. Comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And Councillor Shukin, we have the business arising from the minutes to be considered at the council meeting. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Mayor Little. First one is in regards to 1050 Matheson Lake Road, and so move that council request staff send notices to landowners within 60 meters of the property, informing them of the application in the council meeting when issuance of the permit will be considered, and that staff schedule a site visit with council and the property owners. So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Go ahead, Councillor Shukin.
Okay, in regards to 449 Leefield Road and the rezoning application, that council not require the application to host a public information meeting, to direct staff to refer the application to agencies for comment, to request staff to bring back the proposal and applicable land use bylaw amendment for consideration, and also that staff schedule a site visit with council and the property owners. So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Question?
Yeah, I guess this is one that concerns me quite a bit. We talked about it at our last meeting. And the first thing that bothers me about it, I'm speaking against the motion. I think we can do better. The first thing that bothers me is that we not require the applicant to host a public information meeting. It seems to me that that's lack of openness, transparency with the public. I think it's a big mistake not to learn more about what people might think about such a controversial decision. My second point would be around the environment. I mean, there's the issue of the wells that we heard about earlier. There's a wildlife corridor going through here, is my understanding. The zoning is uplands, which matches much of the area around there. It's split zoning, but the uplands there. Worried about the aquifer. It doesn't meet or satisfy the provincial requirements that we see are coming upon us. So it's not like that we're following the province's lead here. It's a completely different idea. And I don't think it ties in well with what we've seen so far in terms of the province's viewpoint. It increases density contrary to our OCP and council policy. I guess, we're going to have a public hearing on this if we proceed down the line, and I fear that public hearing will be, lead to a bit of an uprising. Councilman Mayor may be eviscerated as a result of moving ahead with something like this. We have no policy basis for it. It opens us up for many other applications for rezoning across the district. I don't see what's so special about it in terms of moving forward in this way. We did really hear arguments in support of it at the meeting. Council meant to be a guardian of the community and the OCP vision, and I think we're wandered away from it. We have two letters here tonight from residents Wendy Schmeltz and Richard Jensen, who make the points very clearly about the ill-advised proceeding with this motion, and particularly, I guess, the other thing is spending the staff time, spending money when it seems the opposite of stewardship on our financial front.
Okay, anybody else wish to comment? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Well, I'm gonna, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna comment as well. I voted against this motion at the planning committee table, but I did so for two reasons. One was because I thought it was premature to launch this particular initiative and get staff involved. Not that I'm necessarily opposed to the rezoning, but I think that there's more information that we could have obtained prior to actually getting staff mobilized on this. And the other thing is, just wanting that site visit as I thought that was the critical step. That said, I just want to voice that I did move it, but I think I will vote against this as well.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to this? Go ahead, Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, as I recall, this was a bit of an it was an unusual piece of property zoned before incorporation, and I think that what the planner had noticed is that we take it to a different level, make it one zone instead of a split zone, and next steps from there, which is probably why we were thinking of a site visit just to see what it is that we're looking at, to get more information. I recall at that meeting bringing up the fact that there is a well on the property, and I do know the neighborhood, and there's a row of neighbors right beside it, again, about the time of incorporation, where they were split off into smaller parcels of land. You can see it quite clearly. There's I think 3 that are panhandled, and then the 3 adjacent to them. So it would be very interesting to actually have a site visit, because I do know that the lay of the land does start to change at the end of that road compared to where those 6 panhandles are. That would help to make a more informed decision, I think. As far as the what's coming from the province, we have no idea how things are going to be for Matheson at this point in time. It's still in flux. We're getting a little bit of information here and there, but in the meantime, I understand what Councillor Gray is saying, and I have read what the letters are. I definitely believe that there's more information to be had, and I'd like to keep an open mind about that and do a site visit.
Councillor Epp, do you wish to speak to this?
I did support the motion because there's this particular property is two different zonings on it. And I felt that, moving forward, could get more information. That doesn't necessarily mean we would approve it, but at least to get more information on exactly, how that zoning is going to work on that particular piece of property.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, if we vote this motion down, I'd be prepared to move a motion that we perform a site visit at the location and obtain any further information required by staff, required by council from staff.
Okay, at the moment we've got the original motion on the table. I'll vote in favor of this motion to get this going. With this motion, it doesn't mean that we have approved the application. We're just moving it along in due process and of course with the site visit. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Councillor Gray, Councillor Shukin opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Shukin with staff memo Weir's Beach C.
Sure, regarding Weir's Beach, that council asked staff to provide further information on liability risks related to the stairs and the district's trails, and within that context, reconsider the technical feasibility, and again, this is related to the stairs. So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, we've talked about Weir stairs, it seems a lot. And I think at this point, I would be interested in not so much learning about the $50,000 option in terms of technical feasibility, but I would be interested in an undeveloped path and a rustic stairs that we've talked about. And so I'd like to move an amendment to the motion so that it reads as it does now. I'll just pick up the last few words. To reconsider the technical feasibility of an undeveloped footpath versus rustic stairs. In other words, that's the motion. If someone would second, I'll just describe a little bit further.
This is an amendment to the motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pepp.
So the rationale here is that I think we need to put to bed the idea of spending $50,000 on a great big stairway there. We've kicked it around enough, and I think just for, spending more money to have somebody come back and do a technical feasibility of something so complicated that I don't think we're prepared to spend the money on is not good stewardship.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak to this? I'm going to vote against the amendment. I'd like all the information before me before I make a decision on one option or the other. And that will help me come to a conclusion of what to do with Weir Beach stairs. We absolutely have to do something with it. And you're right, we've been toying this around, talking about it all year. I'd like to get the information from the engineer and from the planner, and then evaluate each option side by side. Anybody else wish to speak to this amendment to the motion?
Very little.
Go ahead, Councillor Shukin.
I don't support the amendment. I think it would be good to get additional information. We are talking about reconsider the technical feasibility. We're not talking about doing a feasibility study per se. It's feasibility within the context of liability. So I think we should consider the options because one of the things, if we decide to not pursue one or the other, one of the options that we may have to consider is closure of the stairs. So I think we need to take a good hard look at it. I like Councillor Gray, I am cautious of how much we spend on this particular area, but I think we need to understand what the options are as we go ahead.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak to the amendment? Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. Being cognizant of the amount of money we may incur in doing this. We have a rough set of stairs there right now, so I'm not inclined to support that at all, knowing that it's on the shoreline and it's pretty treacherous, and who knows how that's going to change. But certainly more information, getting educated on this. If it can happen, it's great. If it can't, we close it, then it's done without too much more ado.
Councillor Epp? Councillor Shukin? No? Just a second. No? Councillor Shukin?
I'm sorry, I'm opposed to the motion, to the amendment.
Okay.
We're voting on that.
Councillor Gray?
Yeah, I appreciate the comments people have made. You haven't swayed me though. If this were to cost $50,000, then I'm afraid the closing the path comes into view quite sharply. I don't think we had a question, frankly, of liability risk with the Taj Mahal stairs. It was more the issue of, can we leave as a rough trail or can we leave as a rustic stairs, and how does that compare to our trails? So I just try and refine it so we get a good view of what we need to know to make our next decision. But I see where council's going. Haven't convinced anybody. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor of the amendment? Councillor Gray, Councillor Epp. All opposed? Councillor Donaldson, Mayor Little, Councillor Shukin. Motion fails. Amendment to the motion fails. Go back to the original motion. Are we ready to call the question? All in favor? Opposed? So you were voting in favor, Councillor Shukin?
I am, yes. Yeah.
Okay, unanimously carried. Thank you. Go on, Councillor Shukin, to item D.
Okay, that council direct staff to prepare an advertisement for the Matheson News January and February editions to seek interest among community members in joining the Parks and Trails Advisory Select Committee. So moved.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then E.
Okay, that council asked staff to book a joint meeting with council and the Parks and Trails Advisory Select Committee as soon as practicable to accounting for the demands of staff, council, and the Parks and Trails Advisory Select Committee members.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And finally, F.
That council not proceed with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs Complete Communities Grant application. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. Anybody wish to speak to this?
Yeah, I just want to appreciate council members for re-looking at this. It didn't seem to make sense at the time in terms of where we want to put the community, and so I'm very happy that we've reconsidered and not be putting this forward now.
Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, I agree with what Councillor Gray says, and the one thing that I was concerned about too, after coming back from UBCM and listening to quite a few communities who are in much more dire states than we are having after the wildfire season and such, I'm hoping this grant will actually service some of those communities. So good that we're passing by on this one.
Okay, anybody else wish to speak? If not, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Mayor Little opposed. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Shukin. And then Councillor F, on page 45, we have the business arising from, sorry?
I think I need to recuse myself
Okay,
on this.
yep, go
Due
ahead.
to the fact that I could be in a perceived conflict of interest as it is in my neighborhood, the topic of Coleridge.
Okay, let me use my office.
We move that council request staff to provide information on the feasibility of the Flesh Road Bridge repairs being a multi-year project in order to deal with the costs in a more gentle manner.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Gray. Councillor Epp, do you wish to speak to this motion?
Well, I actually think this was your suggestion, so maybe you should comment on it.
Yeah, I just thought it was a good idea to get some information from staff on whether we can do the repairs. There's 4 abutments on the bridge that need to be repaired. Perhaps we could take 2 this year and then 1 the next year and 1 the other year. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know whether that is feasible, but it's certainly from a budgetary point of view that would be a reasonable way to proceed. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, and I'd like to propose an amendment to this motion that we add the words removal or, so that the full motion would read that council requests staff to provide information on the feasibility of the Flesh Road Bridge removal or repairs being a multi-year project in order to deal with the cost in a more gentle manner. If I have a seconder, I'll speak to it.
I'll second that.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp.
The reason for adding these words is that simply the cost of removal, the cost of repair are roughly the same. It could be that we would prefer to repair it if we find that we can't remove it in pieces, or the other way around, in terms of getting this multi-year approach.
Yeah, I think the cost of removal was substantially more than the cost of repair, if I remember correctly. Even if we were to remove it, we would have to account for the CRD water and the Fortis gas, and tunneling underneath the bridge is, or sorry, tunneling underneath the creek is not a very environmentally sound way to go about it. That's why I had suggested this the other night. So that's a motion by Councillor Epp. I'll second that motion. Councillor Shukin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I'm a bit torn on this one because, you know, consistent what we were talking about even with Weir Beach is getting a sense of the full cost. But this one, I'm betting this particular study is likely going to involve engineer time. I'm a little reluctant to, probably even consulting engineer time, like external engineer consulting time. I'm willing to support this, but I have to say it's interesting because the removal of the bridge is actually bound to be in some ways more complicated, far more complicated than the repair of the bridge, as based on the information that we've seen to date. But I will support the amendment.
Okay, so I'll call the question on the amendment, and that was to add removal and repairs being a multi-year project. So call the question. All in favor? Gray, Shukin, and Epp. Opposed, Mayor Little.
Another amendment to propose to the motion, and that is that we add at the very end, it says with the cost in a more gentle manner, and to continue on and seek legal advice on Flesh Road maintenance issues. And the notion here, Ben, there are a number of legal issues. We've heard from people speaking from the podium about various different concerns about whether or not our liability will be in this direction or that direction. I'd like some clarity on that, so that when this next hit the agenda, we can make a decision rather than seeking this in the next phase.
Okay, anybody else wish to comment on the amendment? No? Okay, so Councillor Shukin, are you clear what the amendment is?
I am, and I will be seconding it.
Okay. Seeing there's no seconder of that amendment, there's no motion. I'll call, go ahead.
If I could ask that be placed on an in-camera meeting so we can continue the discussion at the next opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Epp?
I have an amendment as well. I'm not sure how to exactly phrase this, but I would like to know the option that we had about the bridge and just keeping it open for pedestrian, cyclist, and equestrian use. I'd like to know a little bit more about, you know, how engineers would be able to keep the bridge safe as far as the deterioration and eventual, you know, falling into the creek idea for that purpose. And I mean, I know obviously now it would be fine, but we've never seen anything about, you know, how many years that would go, what would have to be done to the bridge as far as keeping it in condition so that it won't cause an environmental issue down the road. So I'm not exactly sure how to word that, possibly just to add, and the feasibility of maintaining the bridge as a pathway for pedestrians, cyclists, and equestrians.
Okay, so tag that on at the end after gentle manner. Yeah, okay. So moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by, I'll second that. Anybody else wish to ask any questions, concerns?
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
just
Councillor
want,
Shukin.
thank you. And what I recall reading from the engineer's report is that the option to develop just maintain the bridge's pedestrian or equestrian access did not come with any structural support other than putting up the guardrails. So what the proposal was put up the guardrails, but monitor the bridge every 2 years to keep an eye on degradation. And so the price tag for that was $60,000, fair enough, but it didn't come with any structural supports as I recall. And this is where we got this, the concept that we're basically kicking this thing down the road, because there is going to come a time when it will degrade to the fact that there is going to be some remediation. So sorry, I just wanted to throw that clarification in, as I recall what the engineer's report said.
Yeah, that's true. So at some point it'll either need to be removed or repaired, whether we keep it open for a few more years and the next council deal with it. Councillor Gray.
And so I'm good to vote in favor of the motion if feasibility means how long will this bridge last in its place? That's the question that I think we're asking, is if we simply, resurface the top of it, get it ready for pedestrians or bikes or horses, how long is that bridge going to stay there?
Yeah.
And that it sort of goes back to my initial question, removal or repair. It matters to me how long the bridge would last in any of these scenarios.
Yeah, according to the engineer's report, it's not the resurfacing. The surface is actually pretty good. It's the 4 abutments. If you go down and look at the bridge, they're deteriorating. They're wooden.
So I meant
they're deteriorating considerably. There's one in particular that is quite bad that should be repaired sooner than later, and then the other 3 to follow. Councillor Epp.
Well, I was just wondering basically if a repair capable of supporting pedestrians, for example, it doesn't seem to me that would have to be, maybe it would, but as extensive as it would be to barely vehicles.
Okay, so this is an amendment to the motion, adding on some words at the end regarding the feasibility of maintaining the bridge as a pedestrian foot passenger bridge. Is that right?
Yeah, close enough.
Yep. Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Councillor Shukin, how are you voting?
I'm in favor.
In favor. So
I'm in favor.
Shukin, Epp, and Gray in favor, Little opposed. Motion carries. Okay, and on the main motion, let's have a vote. All in favor? Opposed?
Thank you.
Can we just go, what's the motion we're voting on now? Excuse me.
Page 45.
I'm in favor.
Okay, I'll call the question again. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you. We've got reports for action on page 47 of the council agenda. Oh, hi. Sorry, I forgot about you. Thanks. Thanks, Ms. Tarnowski. Okay, on page 47, we have the Matheson Museum Society Pioneer Museum License of Occupation Renewal. Intern CEO Tarnowski, would you carry it away?
Thank you, Mayor Little. I am pleased to report that staff has been working with the president and vice president of the Matheson Museum Society since September in anticipation of bringing forward this agreement in an amicable fashion. So through our discussion, the society has agreed to, if you recall from the last renewal a year ago, there was a discrepancy between a 5 meter or 8 meter pathway, if you will, between the properties of the museum and the Equestrian Society. So the president and vice president have come to an agreement that they're in agreement with the 5 meters. So, and in addition to that, one thing very important to note is that the society has been using a room that is on the main floor, I guess, of the school. It's a small little room for the purpose of archiving and storage of their materials. So in this lease, we have included that room in the lease agreement as well. So that moving forward, that's clear and understood to everybody that the room is being used for that purpose. And also a last point to note about this is you'll notice that the term of the agreement is a little bit off. It's not, it's of course not 1 year, but it's also not the usual 5 years. This is for the purpose of aligning the agreement with the Schoolhouse Museum, so that those 2 agreements will expire at the same time as opposed to different times.
Okay, thank you. Could you comment on what the equestrians, both Stella French and Ayla Zylet, were commenting regarding the bolded red rectangle of the museum property and the angled picket fence, which is within the corner of the and at the southwest end to be maintained and perhaps defined in the easements?
So that really just is a question of where around the corner of the Museum Society where the horse trailers we need that extra bit of angle access allowance for them to be able to make the turn with the trailers. So there's the reference to that. My understanding when speaking with the Museum Society's president and vice president, that's never been an issue of the Museum Society not permitting, obviously, the questions to use that when they're driving the trailers.
Okay, thank you. And also not only equestrians, but the emergency first responders as well. And that's indicated by the dotted line in the Schedule A of the Matheson Museum Society diagram. Okay, so we have this here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Shukin.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Little. A question to Ms. Tarnowski through you. I did have a chance to connect with Mr. Harris and Ms. Van Manen, the president and vice president of the Museum Society. They passed on their thanks for the hard work that you and Ms. Hanson did to get the lease going. And I hate to throw any sort of wrinkle into this. But I do recall that corner was one of the big controversies early this year, led to the 1-year agreement that we're now trying to renew. But is there any harm, and I hate to be amateurish about this, but redoing the lease so that it does take into account that diagonal area that allows for the parking, that allows for the movement of traffic. And one of the reasons why I asked this is that this is a longer term lease now. And the amiability that Mr. Harris and Ms. Van Manen are showing, who knows where it's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 years now. And this again was the source of controversy because there was a desire to expand the museum within its current within the footprint. So I just wonder if there's a way of sort of direct, reconfiguring the lease boundary so it does take into the curved area.
Yeah, Councillor Shukin, just to remind you that the controversy was mostly due to the discrepancy in the 5 meter distance, 5 meters versus 8 or 8 meters.
Yeah.
And so that was most of the controversy. The other one, as I see the map on Schedule A, it is demarked there. Do you not see that?
Well, I do. Yeah, it's the dark line that identifies the lease, the museum sort of footprint, if you will.
Councillor Gray.
Thanks, Councillor Shukin. Thank you, Mayor Little. I think if memory serves right, the roadways are meant to be used by the public, so there's no, and a number of the leases overlap on roadways. So I'm not sure there's any changes needed here. If the understanding is simply that roadways aren't to be built on, then nothing should get in anybody's way. The alternative would be, I guess, look at all the leases as we suggested last year and remove all the roads so none of them are license of occupation.
Okay, Councillor
Treat them all the
Thompson.
same, basically.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to change all of this, this lease, but I'm just wondering if we can make an amendment where we can actually, before it gets signed, if we could just make an addition that there's an agreement that angle kind of stays there for the trajectory of vehicles, all vehicles, even the farmer's market, people kind of come and go through there. Recognizing that the bolded line is actually the leased area of the museum. Glad to see that it's shaped out like it is, and appreciate that it is staying at where the picket fence is, but if the angle of that picket fence can remain the same as the museum has accommodated. If we just have that actually documented.
Okay. I can't see why that would be a problem. So, Ms. Tarnowski, just so there would be some notation here that there is a angled here on the lease agreement before we have it signed. I'm looking to the president and the vice president and not seeing a lot of objections to that. I don't think so. Actually, how about we come to the mic and then we don't have to come back to another meeting. Thank you. Judith.
Judith Van Man, Vice President. We've been working on this for some time, and we're really hoping it can move smoothly ahead because we also want to keep the old barn books open all year. And if we don't have our license, we can't function with the old barn books. So I'm just hoping if we do add this amendment, it can move smoothly ahead with the signing.
Yes, we could.
There was always an understanding that this was a roadway, that it could be used absolutely by emergency vehicles and by the equestrians. That's always been our understanding. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Actually, I don't think it is a roadway. I think it's all...
It is a thoroughfare. It's not an actual road, but it's a thoroughfare for all vehicles.
Yeah.
Everyone that visits the property.
Okay, so I am seeing nobody else wants to talk. I would like to move along to the options that we have here. Now, go ahead.
I just have one more query regarding the financial implications to do a survey. Is this something we are considering or no?
Oh, sorry.
Too late now. So that is something that we're not considering at the moment just because of the cost. But although there is a lot of advantages to having the property surveyed, instead we're using a diagram that staff isn't exactly sure where it originated from. It keep continually manually add and analyzes.
So I just wanted to expand on why I was inquiring about that. Certainly the cost, because it could be more than that. But in the spirit of collaboration, and I think we've seen that this last year with the groups involved, but that I'd suggest that we continue to work with all the leasers on our properties together and with their council liaison of the Matheson Grounds Group, that when things like this come up, that we continue those open conversations, collaborate and find solutions as we have. I don't see a need for a survey because I do believe that in time some of these lease situations may change. Hopefully they won't, because I think all of these groups are of great value to our community, but we never know. So that we understand that we share all the allotted spaces on municipal grounds. They don't belong to anybody but the taxpayer, but we share them, and nice to see that we've got some bolded lines as well, and that there's some ebb and flow. But to keep those communications flowing with their liaison, and it's worked quite well this past year. So I appreciate that with staff's cooperation as well.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak to this? Councillor Eck.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask Mr. Tarnowski if there's a way that we can make this recommendation for option 1 with a few added words or about that corner, or how can we do this to get this done tonight?
So through the chair, we could definitely do that. So it just really just changing intention, putting in writing that that angle piece, if you will, of the property. And then we can go ahead. Other than that, that would be the only change. And in essence, in spirit, the agreement is ready for signature. So if we could just do that little change, and then the mayor and myself can sign the agreement.
So is that an amendment then, or do we need to have a separate motion on that?
That would be an amendment.
What are we calling it? I'll move an amendment.
Amendment to motion.
To Schedule A.
To that, yes, to option 1.
And the, if I may give you a hand here.
Yes.
So an amendment would be to include a definition of the dotted line at the southwest corner of the diagram in Schedule A. Oh, actually, is it south? Yeah, southwest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody
Okay,
else?
so Ms. Hanson, do you have that
Yes, I do.
amendment?
You can just, just approve the license of occupation as amended.
Okay, so I will move that council approve the license of occupation with the Matheson Museum Society for the lease of Matheson Pioneer Museum for a 4-year term from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2027 as amended.
Moved by Councillor Eck,
Second.
seconded by Councillor Schuken. Anybody else? I call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the main motion is just option 1. Everybody understand that? Moved by...
Sorry. If I may, I thought we just passed that motion as amended.
You don't have to do the, you just,
the motion as amended.
as
Okay.
amended, yes.
Okay, good. Okay. There we are with the staff report. Moving on to the CRD Enforcement Services Agreement on page 63. This was a report to council from the interim CAO.
So this report is before council for the renewal for the contract services with the CRD bylaw enforcement, as well as for animal control agreements. So this agreement is for 3 years with the option to renew for an additional 2. So as is for 3 years, it expired December 31st, 2026. And if council at that time wishes to extend for 2 years, it's now going to take it to December 31st, 2028. So I just want to speak a little bit about the financial impact on this agreement. So there are 2 parts that have been revised to reflect our not only historical hours of usage, but also the rate that's being charged by the CRD. So it has increased from $85.21 for 2022 to $97 going forward for 2024. And also, in addition to the additional increased hourly rates, you can see from the historical uses is that it has been a little bit higher than what we have been paying. So for conservative purpose, we are going forward. We're going to pay a minimum of $250 hours for the year, with the understanding that if the actual usage exceeds that, we will obviously be paying for the actual hours. So we're just budgeting 250 hours for 2024 going forward, but again, based on the actual usage, then that contract value will obviously go up.
Okay, Councillor Gray.
I'll move that council approve the CRD bylaw enforcement services agreement and authorize the mayor and CAO to execute the agreement on behalf of the District of Matheson.
This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Eck. Any other discussions? Councillor,
Yeah, I'll,
Councillor Donaldson, then Shukin.
Just had a question under number 1 with the financial impact, bylaw enforcement service agreement, where it says minimum hours of service per year increase from 180 to 250, and then the list below, I don't see anything that says 180, but I do see the average of 250, so I'm not sure where the 180 came from.
So that was the 180 was the hours that was in the previous contract. So it does say there's the minimum hours that we will pay for. So it's 180, but you could see from the historical usage that it does exceed 180 considerably.
Yes, yeah, that's good clarification. Thank you very much.
Okay. And Councillor Shukin.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I have to confess I was a bit surprised to see this on the agenda now. I thought we had another year before we were renewing. That's no worries there, but I do support this and I will vote for it. What I do, in past, there's been discussion about Matheson hiring its own bylaw officer. When you actually see the rates and the flexibility to some degree that we have with the CRD, there is a financial, there's a financial benefit to this arrangement for sure. But I also noticed there's some flexibility to if we somehow decide to take a new approach with bylaw enforcement. The one thing I will notice is if you look at the CRD covenants in section 4, it does say upon request the bylaws, enforce the bylaws according to the policies of council. And I should remind everyone that we do have a bylaw enforcement policy that does identify not only enforcement levels, but some of the criteria that go into selecting enforcement. So for example, repeat offenders, environmental harm, those are listed in the policy as things you might consider in terms of identifying fines and penalties for bylaw offenses. So thank you very much, and I will vote in favor of this.
Councillor Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Little. I appreciate what Councillor Shukin is saying about the past discussions of doing this on our own. 250 hours of service, though, is only 0.15 of an FTE, so it's pretty hard to run that locally. I think we're better to be part of a large group where we can hire full-time people who know our bylaws and can do all that sort of work. So I'm still voting in favor.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we have another. Oops.
Second one, I move that council approve the CRD Animal Control Services Agreement and authorize the mayor and CEO to execute the agreement on behalf of the District of Matheson.
Thank you. Thank you for the correction. Councillor Eck and Councillor Donaldson. Okay, this is to execute the agreement. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So we have another report from the interim CAO regarding the Accessible BC Act municipal requirements.
Thank you.
Mayor Little, I would move option 1. I can read it out if you want, and if there's a second, we can discuss. Do you need me to read it out?
Yep, that's fine. This option 1 is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Okay, I'm just going to turn this over to interim CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Little. So this report is before council to provide an update on the sub-regional Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee and to ensure that the district is meeting the legislative requirements as set out by the Accessibility Act of BC. So which is to establish an Accessibility Advisory Committee, to develop an accessibility plan, and to establish a process for receiving public feedback on the plan, and lastly to receive feedback on the plan as well as barriers that people face in interacting with local government. So at the August 14, 2023 council meeting, council passed a motion to continue to participate on the joint want to say IACTI because it's a really mouthful, committee with partners to include the West Shore municipalities. And to date, so 6 of the 7 municipalities have joined the Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee. So that is all the communities within the West Shore with the exception from Machosen. So the City of Colwood was the most recent municipality to join the advisory committee, and that's on November 14th. So the advisory committee, so the Capital West Advisory Committee had its first meeting on November 22nd, and with the proposed timeline of the next steps, that's included in the staff report. You'll see that in the report itself. So it is expected that a final draft accessibility plan will be brought forward to councils, so the 6 councils at the moment, by December 2024. And the committee will then transition to a community-based committee starting in 2025. So from today's report, so staff is seeking council's endorsement for Machosen to join the joint advisory committee to ensure that Machosen is meeting the legislative requirements as set out in the Accessibility Act.
Okay, thank you for that. Do I have any comments or concerns regarding this? Councillor Gray.
Just a question, this is the 3rd time this exact same issue has been back to council. We sort of flip-flopping. It looks like now the energy is to move with the Intermunicipal Advisory Committee. Previously, Mayor Little, you'd been highly recommended IACTI to do the job. Why would we move away from IACTI at this point? I know you worked at it for the other mayors and you talked to the districts and talked to IACTI quite a bit, and that got us to vote in favor of IACTI. Where are we at? What's IACTI not able to provide, or what happened?
It is with reluctance that I'm moving away from my decision to have IACTI as our accessibility committee because we just can't do it Machosen alone. It's not feasible. It doesn't make sense. It increases redundancy in the system, which the legislation purposely says it doesn't want redundancy. And so I'm going with the path of least resistance here, and the path that looks like the good path in the interim. After a year, the Capital West will evolve into a community committee, and so representatives from IACTI and other organizations will be encouraged to put their names forward for that commission. So it's a decision of mine just because of feasibility, and it just is not. The Machosen just can't do this on its own. It's just too much for staff. And so that it's better that the $10,000 go with the other $60,000 because there will be a lot of similarities between the communities. And staff is worried at this point that we're not meeting our legislative obligations. So I just want to move on this.
So I guess we had 7 corporate officers who had advised us to do this in the beginning, and they couldn't see the value in IACTI in the end to do it, or just not suited for the role. I mean, I'd like to say it a little bit clearer about why.
The corporate officers felt that they could better get it off the ground, get it going, set out a framework. My objection to that was I thought that the people with lived experience should be the ones that would be deciding that. But that is not a sentiment that is held by all of the communities. And so I'm listening to the other communities and trying to keep an open mind. So there's some wisdom in that. And with that, I will be in favor of this motion. Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that IACTI has been working quite a lot on redefining themselves, and they've chosen to become a registered society, so that changes things considerably from my understanding, as far as being a separate entity like they were before. So that has certainly changed my role as well going into the future, although I still have connection with them. There was a lot of deliberations over the summertime on this, and a lot of working through terms of reference, a lot of going back and forth, and so sadly this is where we are, but financially this is our best choice.
Anybody else wish to speak to this? Go ahead, Councillor Epp.
Yeah, I think, I don't think that people with lived experience are going to be excluded at all from this committee. Originally, they're going to be, a staff committee, which is what we need to deal with all the provincial legislation and how it's all going to be organized. And then, as Councillor Donaldson mentioned, I think you did, that it was in the motion, but anyway, in 2025, that then they are going to be including the people with the lived experience and move it into a more community-based organization or committee once all those, the groundwork has been laid.
And also, I might add that the accessibility committee at the CRD, which actually is redundancy, but anyways, they were subject to the same legislation that the province put down. A number of the IACD members did put their names forward, and a number of them have been appointed. And so they are being heard within the CRD, which I think is even better than being heard just at the West Shore level.
Maybe just one follow-up through the chair. Councillor Johnson, if they become a society, do we still have a member on IACD, or do we become a liaison to IACD, or do we know yet?
I'm not sure.
I think it would remain the same because we have other societies. I mean, MACA is a society, right? Where we had they're not. Who is a society?
The Seniors
Association, and we had a council liaison to the Seniors Association. So, okay. I'm going to call the question. All in favor of Capital West? All opposed? Thank you. Okay, that will make staff happy. To get that done. Reports for information. On page 91 of your council agenda, we have a report from Colquitt's. This was a letter from Caitlin Balzer. Is it? No, sorry. This is from Jeff Howard to Caitlin. I'll ask the interim CAO to walk us through this.
So, thank you very much, Mayor Little. So I'd like to provide context as to the reason that this report is on the agenda today. In the past, we as the district have not been able to release the document or the report because it hadn't been finalized by the consultant. And I know there's keen interest from the community to get a copy of the report. So now that the report is finalized, it is put on the agenda for the public to access. And so the purpose of that is twofold. First of all is to try to mitigate further incurring or FOI expenses, which looking out to year end, we are anticipating that it's going to be $15,000 over the $10,000 budget. So primarily that was a huge driver of trying to mitigate further unnecessary FOI expenses. And like I said, second part is that it's now finalized. I know there's keen interest from the community and council to have a look at the report. So it's absolutely just here for information only. I also wish to let you know that the engineer, myself, met with the engineer from Langford last week. So we have been brainstorming and playing around with different formats and to come back to council in January. That's what we're aiming for, to answer all the questions and the motions that have been passed by council recently relating to approvals and questions of the quality of the water that's going to flow into the creeks in the Chosen.
Okay, well, that's good news. And presumably you'll also address the questions of the 110 stormwater runoff compared to the 1 in 200 in our Machosen rainwater bylaw, as well as plans of what's going to happen with all that water that we know is coming our way. Yeah, absolutely.
So at this meeting that I mentioned earlier, the engineer will be present for the purpose of being able to answer questions. He can answer engineering questions way better than I can, so.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, some questions came up at public participation about us budgeting $20,000 for this engineering company, and it's my understanding that they have done some work for us. Have they done all the work that we expected? Because I know that they had said they were overloaded with work and their schedules, and that we were going to look for another hydrologist. Can you bring us up to speed on there?
Yes, I can. So through the chair, the Colquitt's Engineering has completed the scope of work that was given to them. So because there was additional requests for them to provide additional work and feedback, at such time they have declined because due to the workload. So you're right, and that the RFP is currently out for another hydrologist to further provide us with a similar scope of service.
So they've been paid the full 20?
No, they've only, for the amount of work they've done, the invoice is less than $2,000. So there's plenty of room to engage a different consultant.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gray. Councillor Gray, then Councillor Shukin.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm pleased to see this on the agenda and released in the way it has been. I think it has caused some confusion. We had some spirited comments tonight. This relates to work done in the past. So it's entirely, it was just an issue of people wanting to see the document. Jeff Howard recommended by a number of people in the community that he be the hydrologist. He did, I think, a thorough job here for the work he was asked to do. And the plans that were provided by the developer on Center Mountain were changed as a result of that. And then he's taking a look at that again. I think what I'm terribly interested in will be the next steps. In the report back and where we are in terms of project approvals, which my understanding is nothing's approved yet. So there shouldn't be much action on Center Mountain Estates at the moment. And then I'm hoping that we will be able to engage another hydrologist and or ecosystem specialist. The RFP's up on our website. People can look at it there and share it widely. So we might get good people coming in to help us with the next phase of the project.
Councillor Shukin.
Thanks very much, Mayor Little. And I threw you a few questions to Ms. Tarnowski. And at the November 20th meeting, that is when we received the memo from Mr. Hurley, and there were a number of confusing statements in there, and I'll just read you one. The developer's consultant has been notified that no approvals will be forthcoming, as in from chosen, until the pond and other works are complete. And then council has since stated that no approvals, interim or otherwise, will be given until the entire project is complete. And so those statements are really confusing. And I'm glad to hear that you're coming back and Mr. Hurley will be there. But I feel like we've not had clarity on what he was meaning by those points. But I guess my question to you, has Mr. Hurley or yourself given the developers any type of approval or go ahead to move to the next stage, or an approval that would indicate that they can go ahead and start doing infrastructure development on the lands?
I think in the interest of minimizing the possible confusion, again, bearing in mind that I'm not an engineer, I would, if I could respectfully suggest that we wait until the meeting in January presentation, so that the intention is to really come back to explain how an engineering project works in general, in terms of there's little phases, if you will, within a project. So I think with the engineer being present and the ability and opportunity for both council and the public to ask questions, I think that will, the intention is to bring clarity, and I just hesitate to, at this point, speculate on the questions that I may or may not be correct in answering.
Okay, I do go back to the motion that we made on November 20th, I forget the exact wording, but it was a request of you to provide clarity as soon as possible on what Mr. Hurley's memo means. I'm beginning to get, to be honest with you, I do not have confidence that we are plugged into the development process to the level that we should be in terms of ensuring stormwater quality practices or best practices are put in place and incorporated into the design, and that we have a good sense of what the design of the stormwater management pond is going to be. But that's just one aspect. I think we all should expect absolute clarity by January. I think that there's an expectation and a determination with this council that we do get advanced stormwater quality measures put in place in that system. And I worry there's a clash of there's potential clash of expectations and understandings, and I'm worried about that. And I'm sorry, Ms. Tarnowski, you're not giving me confidence right now that the work that is being done is actually effective work, and we're productively engaging with the counterparties, whether it's the developers that are engineers or even the City of Langford. Perhaps more so, it seems, with the City of Langford, there's something, but it's really the developers and their engineers who really seem to matter. And I just, again, I will just say that I don't have any confidence, and I also don't know what other motions we can make to try and clarify where we are as a council on this. So
I can confidently say that both Al and myself have been in contact with Langford. We have spoken at length. Langford is very, very clear as to the council's expectation of the quality and quantity and all the highest possible in terms of environmental protection that council expects. So I obviously am not able to, speak very eloquently in technical terms for engineering, but there has been letter of assurance given to Matheson, which will be brought forward at this meeting that I've mentioned previously, of all the technicalities or initiatives that they're putting in place to address the quality of the runoffs that will be discharged into the pond. So, I'm not sure how else I can tell you, because I obviously am not an engineer, but I can assure you that there is constant and very in-depth discussion between both engineers, our engineer and the Langford engineer, as to this project. Langford is very, very aware and of what my chosen council is expecting from this project.
Okay, and also what I'll do is meet with the interim CAO and go over our previous motions so that it's crystal clear what has been asked of council going forward, so that those questions can be answered at the next meeting. That's okay. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I'm not sure the need for that. We've all received an email from Councillor Shukin, was it earlier today, with the motions laid out, so I think our CAO is well aware of what's going on, has given us a good explanation that she's bringing forward at an upcoming meeting, so I think we can leave it at there.
Okay, anybody else wish to speak to this? No? Okay. So with that, I'll take a motion to receive this for information. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Eck. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We don't have any correspondence for action. Correspondence for information starting on page 95. We have A to C regarding the CRB water supply. And then we have a letter from Brian Sauvé regarding the ongoing issues of the Surrey transition to the police force. That's on page 105. And then we'll move to our bylaws, which is the report to council on the District of Matheson Code of Conduct bylaw. Mr. Noski.
So thank you, Mayor Little. This report is in front of council, is to asking council to consider giving second reading to the Code of Conduct. So you will see on the report that the concerns that were expressed at the previous council meetings, first reading, so you'll see that was the concerns that were expressed. That's shown on the report in 107 is points that were discussed by council is concerns council's access to staff, flexibility on mayor to seek legal counsel on certain issues. And I'm not going to go through the list, but these are really just the issues that have been brought up previously. So given, it's just back again with the intention of looking for council to give second reading, and we can move this report and adopt eventually the adoption of the bylaw.
Okay. Councillor Councillor Gray.
I move that council give second reading to District of Matheson Council of Conduct bylaw number 682, 2023, and continue discussions related to the bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Epp. Do you wish to speak to this?
Yeah, I think once we get second reading done, then we can talk about amendments if there are any.
Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, I just have a question on the page of the report where it says, at the bottom of that list, where it says conflict of interest, section 22 to 25, and then it's got the clarification as to council members seeking independent legal advice or the CAO putting costs related to conflict to ensure validity of bylaws and solutions. I couldn't really find that, but I'm just wondering if that is the same as is that similar to number 11 under part 1 of conduct of elected officials on page 113? I know that that particular set of statements there was something of concern as well. That include the mayor as well as the CAO, and of course not other individual members.
So I remember the discussion. If you go to conflicts of interest on page 115, the conflict of interest section runs from 22 through 25, and the discussion that we had was under 24B.
Okay.
And so it was the issue here that determine whether it's necessary to seek independent legal advice at their own cost, except where the chief administrative officer approves the cost if concerned about the validity of an affected bylaw or resolution with respect to any situation which may result in a conflict of interest. So I think we kicked that around and people understood that it may be the chief administrative officer may take one of us aside and say, oh, golly, you know, I think you've got a conflict here. Let's talk about it before you sit in a meeting and pass motions and such that may invalidate the bylaw or resolution. And that would especially kick in my understanding, is when you've got a big public process going on and you know there's a lot of cost and a lot of attention. And so you want to say this, so the CAO says, oh, at that moment, unlike other moments where they just let you carry on and the chips fall where they may, this one is the chief administrative officer is just trying to save the cost and the reputation for the district to say it would be, could have a conversation about that.
Okay, so then if we go back to page 113, number 11, and it does say this in the report that part 1, sections 8 through 12 as follows. Flexibility for the mayor to seek legal counsel on certain issues. So that's not written in here. Is that something that's going to be written in here? Because it's not updated if it's.
I think if you look under sections 8 through 12, questions were raised. Number 11 is one of the 8 through 12 that was raised.
So I
so we should be talking
that.
about that today.
So I'm just saying, are we updating this as we go along? Are we just making the notes and then updating the final, but voting as we go along? Right?
Yeah, so once we pass the second reading, then we can start to make amendments to it. Yeah.
I understand. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Ms. Hanson had a comment.
Just through the chair to Councillor Donaldson, we will, none of the changes have been made so far.
Okay.
Once council continues discussions and discusses making amendments, we'll bring back a track change bylaw before third reading.
Okay.
So you can amend the bylaw and then give third reading as amended.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Rowe?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mayor Lou?
Go ahead.
Yeah, on Ms. Hansen's advice and thought, I'm okay with moving this to second reading. However, we did talk about also doing some sort of workshop amongst ourselves where we would go through this, whether, I hate to throw another meeting at us, but whether it's a specific meeting or we carve out like a dedicated hour and a half to walk through this. It's a pretty complicated bylaw. And I think it would be good to get our minds collected and focused on this. So I would propose that as the next, next step with this after second reading.
Oh, I agree. I think this deserves a longer conversation. The only problem with having it as a workshop is we can't move business along in a workshop. That's why we do this at the committee meeting where we have staff here to take minutes and everything. So let's keep that point for a moment. Let's deal with the second reading and then we can have a discussion on next steps, okay? Councillor Gray.
I wonder if anyone seconded my motion.
I did.
Thank you.
Okay, so call the question on second reading. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. So second reading has been passed. So next steps. I would propose a special meeting to discuss the Matheson Code of Conduct. It'll be timely because, as I mentioned today, the CRD is just going through their process right now of Code of Conduct as well. They've identified a number of Code of Conducts that are pretty good. Sydney and I, to name a couple of them. And so I would suggest that we have a special meeting to discuss the Code of Conduct. We've got some notations here. The notation, did you have a point, Councillor Donaldson? Tonight it was just about 8 to 12, right?
Yeah, I just want point of clarity on those
Yeah.
two. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gray.
I'm just going to say, I'm not so fussed about a second meeting or third meeting or however many meetings it takes, but the agenda of the council meeting is set in our procedure bylaw. And what happens is we go through a number of things and then we get bylaws, and we're meant to discuss them at normal everyday meetings as far as I know. And so I would think it's just a question of agenda management. So our next meeting, we slim down the beginning part and then we pick up bylaws seriously. I wouldn't see any problem in discussing this thing tonight and getting it done. It's not overly complicated in the sense of much of it is boilerplate, and we have already identified the, is it 4 clauses that concern people? And so I came ready to discuss those tonight. I'm just not sure a special meeting. This has been on our agenda for how long now? We've stopped it for months. And finally got back here and then let's not discuss it seems a bit weak to me.
Well, we can discuss some of it. I don't think it's wise for us to rush through it this evening at 9:45 at night. That's not usually when the best decisions are made. So I think that what we can do is discuss it. Does somebody else have questions or points that they would like to add to the list?
Maybe I'll just respond by saying it's set at the end of our agenda, so that's why it hits us late at night. We could deal with it earlier if you like. I agree tonight maybe it's getting too late, but we do need to manage our agenda so we can get things done. And the Code of Conduct has been many months now waiting for this meeting tonight, and that's why I'm a bit disappointed we're talking about a future meeting when, yeah, enough said.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll leave that up to staff regarding the agenda management. They've done an excellent job all year with the agendas, and I'll encourage them to continue on that vein. But I do hear you having the reading at 10 o'clock at night is not the best. Is there anything specific somebody would like to add to this list here? I know that what I was hoping for with this bylaw is that it would be a bylaw, which it is, which is great, but also that the investigator, whoever that is, has the ability at any time within the investigation to call it quits, to say that the complaint didn't have merit or whatever. And so I'd like something specific to that in here as well, to give the flexibility to the investigator. Anybody else? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I would just commend council to go to the CRD website, the Governance Committee, and if you look there, you will see comparisons between a variety of different codes of conduct and indeed policies of different districts and cities, and you'll see there also examples of code of conduct that have been written and adopted in various places. And you will see if you're dissatisfied with any of the clauses 8 to 12, you can pull off of that website a replacement clauses which deal with exact same issues but slightly different wording. So we of course have a primo legal counsel who've written many of the sounds like code of conduct around the province, and but anyway, there's a menu of alternative wordings for exactly the same issues 8 through 12, and indeed I think you'll see there that all of those clauses should remain in one form or another if we're to follow the model of UBCM, Nanaimo, Vancouver, etc. But anyway, great site to look at.
Thank you. Just to note that the clauses 8 to 12 were not designed by our legal counsel. That was something that was added back in by staff from our previous code of conduct. So that wasn't from the legal, or primo, as you called it, legal counsel. Councillor Epp or Shukin, did you want to add anything to this at this moment? No?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So we've done the second reading. I don't think we need to do anything else. No, regarding that. There's no other business. The question period is where it's after 9:30, so we won't have one. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.